Honestly, I'm selfish. I never wanted kids. I know, sounds awful, right? To have a child, it's a commitment to another person. It's time, it's money, it's resources. And I just never had that desire to want to give that part of myself.
That's pretty interesting.
I never really struggled with having kids. I guess the only time I ever questioned it was, why does anybody want me? What's wrong with me? That was probably the only time that I was like, okay, this isn't happening for me. Is there something wrong?
In this episode, I sit down with Audrey Grant-Lott, Director of Talent Management at the RMR Group, as she reflects on nearly 3 decades in multifamily. From her small-town Florida roots to building a national career in training and development, Audrey shares how faith, family, and life experience shaped her perspective. We talk about turning 50, letting go of drama, and why meaningful relationships at work and at home matter more than ever. It's real, thoughtful, and deeply human.
I was watching all of my friends getting married and I was in so many weddings, attended so many weddings, and it's like, well, when is this gonna happen for me? So that might have been the only time that I kind of questioned. And I don't think it's the path that I chose. I think it was the path that I was supposed to follow.
How do you feel like your priorities have changed over the last 30 years?
Life makes you change your priorities. Something's gonna happen to you when you turn 50, and you're just gonna be like, yeah, I don't give a shit about any of these things anymore. There are things in my life that cause drama. I don't have time or energy or space. Right now, my priority is...
Property managers lose hours chasing rent, while delinquency and filing costs add up to massive losses. The financial impact? Millions in unpaid rent sold to collections agencies that recover just 20 to 30%, while taking a huge cut. Now, the Kelsey you trust for leasing helps you recover more rent in-house, reducing reliance on agencies and maximizing revenue. With Collections AI, Kelsey automates rent and move-out collections, from the first missed payment to move-out, while ensuring compliance across jurisdictions. Easily train and set up Kelsey on your company's collections process, including CARES and state-regulated workflows. She doesn't just set reminders. Kelsey answers resident questions, tracks promise to pay dates, and follows up persistently to keep payments on track. Need oversight? Corporate teams can monitor collections in real time with Zuma's dashboard, while site teams use the Chrome Assistant to track payments and even respond as Kelsey when needed. Kelsey also evaluates resident risk with AI, providing instant insights to help you make smarter renewal decisions. The impact? Doubles collections velocity, reduces filings, cuts site team workload by 85%. Stop leaving rent revenue on the table. Let Zuma's Collections AI handle the heavy lifting while you focus on what matters. Get started today.
Audrey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Shiv. Excited to be here.
This is going to be fun.
Hope so.
Let's start with a little bit about you and your background. So maybe a guiding question could be, what do you feel like are some of your early memories that you feel like have had impacted you on who you are today?
Probably the easiest thing for me to relate to is my mother was a teacher, believe it or not. And so education has kind of been part of who I was and who she was for most of my upbringing. The ironic thing is that I hated school and was a horrible student.
Really?
So yeah, absolutely. And now I'm doing it as a career. So
what did your mom teach?
In my younger years, she was a department head at a vocational center, and I'm not quite sure, I think it was just business in general. But when she retired, she was actually a high school teacher that taught, I think, business classes as well.
And you feel like that may have influenced you to want to do training, or no?
No, not really.
No.
It's just now I look back on it and I'm like, that's just very interesting.
Yeah.
She was a teacher, and she actually would tell people, my friends in high school that were wanting to aspire to be a teacher, they want to go to school to be a teacher, she would say, that's great, but get out of the state of Florida to do it, just because the public school systems there were, in that time, I guess, not great.
What were they? Why?
I guess just the pay, the support, the environment, all of that, the curriculum, just all of that combined.
So you grew up in Florida.
I grew up in Florida, a little town called Brandon, Florida, right outside of Tampa.
How little?
Wow. At the time, it felt huge, but since going back there, I think it might encompass when I grew up, and this was in the 70s, maybe 20 square miles or something like
Wow.
that. So
Small population. Yeah, because we I've spent a lot of time with people, obviously, through this podcast, and it's incredible how many people in multifamily have come from a small town.
So yeah, it's certainly developed since then a lot more. I remember when we got our first mall, and you would have thought that Disney World opened. It was just insane. The people lined up to get in, and when the doors opened, people were literally like running through to go to their stores, and it was just, I remember it being a cow pasture, and then now it's this huge mall, and now it's kind of the anchor of one end of the town with all of these other retails and restaurants and stuff around it. So
And when you think, what did your dad do?
my dad was a copy repairman and salesperson. So he sold old copy machines and he repaired them as well. And when it's copy machines, we're talking about the big rollers with the ink that was back in the 60s and the 70s. And so he would go in and repair them, and he was also responsible for selling them. And better repairman than salesperson. So
Really?
yeah. He's too honest to be a salesperson. I know that sounds awful, but
Yeah.
he really was.
What is? How would you differentiate their personalities, both your parents?
My mom and my dad?
Yeah, your mom and your dad.
Wow. So my dad is probably where I inherited my love for kind of being around people, and I probably have more of my dad's personality than my mom. My mother was kind of the strategic thinker, wore the pants in the family, so to speak. And my dad was just a great guy. Just never knew a stranger. If a stop sign would talk back to him, he would carry on a conversation. In fact, he probably did at some point try to carry on a conversation with a stop sign.
Would you describe him as a natural optimist, and would you say you're an optimist as well?
Yes, he definitely was an optimist. I'm probably a calculated optimist, if that makes sense.
A rational optimist.
There you go. That's a good way of framing it. A rational optimist.
And your mom, you mentioned, it sounds like she was not like that as much.
She was more of a realist.
More of a realist.
So yeah, I don't want to say that she was negative, because she wasn't. By no means was I raised in any kind of a negative environment. It was, probably arguably, I had a much better upbringing than many people did. But she definitely was the realist of the two.
And if you were to point to any particular incidents or periods of your life that you feel like may have had some impact, either positive or negative, what would come to mind?
From my parents?
Yeah, from your upbringing, where you grew up. Yeah, maybe your parents' influence, maybe your school's influence.
So I'm not sure I can point to one particular incident, good or bad. Faith and family were always at the core of not just my immediate family, but in particular, my dad's brothers and sisters, and we always had family celebrated holidays with other parts of our family, and I still maintain good relationships with my cousins, even though we all have lost our parents on both sides. So, I guess kind of that upbringing, and I was very fortunate, kind of defined who I am from really just how I treat other people, level of integrity, because I was very fortunate to have a really good example of that growing up.
And so growing up, you would observe your parents treat people very well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Really? In
Yeah.
what ways?
They just, there's people in life that might act one way in front of you, but they're a different way behind closed doors. It's my parents, my dad in particular, was a man who practiced what he preached. He just was overly kind to everybody. And it's not to say that my mother wasn't, he just had more of that outgoing personality and would really, literally give, the shirt off his own back to anybody that really needed it. He was really kind of there for everybody. Even up until the day he died, he was still trying to brighten other people's lives, laying in a hospital bed in his assisted living room. So.
And growing up, do you have any siblings?
I did. I have a brother.
You have a brother.
I have a brother. Yes,
And
he's younger.
He's younger.
Yes.
How many years younger?
3 or 4?
3 or 4.
I don't know. You lose track.
You lose track. What was your relationship like growing up?
With my brother?
Yeah.
We were close, but we also were very different. He was much more like my mother, and like I said, I'm more like my father. So, whereas he was more introverted, maybe had less friends or people that he spent time with. We just didn't at that age have a lot in common. So we've become closer over the years, but he lives in another state. We're still very different. He has, a family. I've got a niece and a nephew. I never wanted kids, so,
You never wanted kids?
No. No.
Ever?
No.
Why is that?
Honestly, I'm selfish. I know, sounds awful, right?
No, it doesn't.
No,
It's candid.
they
truthful.
to have a child, it's a commitment to another person. It's time, it's money, it's resources, and I just never had that desire to want to give that part of myself. Neither did my husband. So, anyways, those are fun conversations to have at family reunions after you get married. So when are you having kids?
Yeah.
Never. Stop asking.
So growing up, really, you never growing up, you were never like, oh, I want, never. You knew as a young person, yeah.
I did. I don't know why. I just younger kids in particular kind of scare me.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And have you ever thought otherwise? Have you ever been like, what if I had kids?
No. So we're the crazy dog people.
Okay. So how many dogs do you have?
Right now we have 1.
Okay.
So we had 2 when we first got married, and they both passed away probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and we just recently got another one about 6 months ago. So
I imagine most of your friends or colleagues have kids.
yes.
What is the experience of not having kids? Like, everybody loves to talk about the upsides of having kids, which is, oh, my life felt different before having kids. I have this. My sister just had a kid 2 months ago, and she talks about how amazing of an experience it was. But at the same time, not having kids also, you really own your time fully and thoroughly. Like, where do you feel like the things that, because you don't have a kid, you can do, or the upsides in life that you experience that others don't because they have kids?
Freedom is, these sound like such horribly selfish terms, but I just said I didn't have kids
I think everybody's selfish. Here's my argument, right? I think that people that have kids are also selfish because you love your kid. If you think about there's 3 things that in life that give you meaning, right? It's purpose or mission to something, whether it's your company, whether it's some duty to something. There's faith, which is a big driver for meaning in life. And then there's family or kids, right?
Correct.
And a lot of people in their lives will actually have kids because they feel lost and they need some purpose. So I don't think having kids is a fully selfless pursuit. I wouldn't say that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is all to say that I don't think choosing to not have kids is I think both sides are selfish. I think most things that people do are self-interested because we're all driven to survive. I think when people
That's fair.
give to charity or help people, of course it's selfless externally, but ultimately it's still selfish
Right.
because it makes you feel good, right? You feel like a good person. And there's nothing wrong in that. I'm not critiquing either way, but I think if you look at a lot of things in life, they're self-driven. So
That's fair. I guess I never really struggled with having kids. I guess the only time I ever questioned it was kind of that period of time right after I got out of high school. And I grew up in the church. And so,
what is that like, growing up in the church?
I mean, I don't think it's much different than growing up, outside the church. You had activities, but they were, formed around, family-friendly activities.
Mm-hmm.
Things, still happened. Nobody's perfect, so. If you were underage and you wanted to find alcohol, you could find it within the church. If you want, if you wanted to do those, things with your boyfriends and girlfriends that you're not supposed to do until you get married, those were happening. But the way it was structured, it was a social event for me. I mean, these were my friends, but then friends graduated from high school, went to college, graduated from college, and they started getting married and they started forming families. And that was probably the only time that I was like, okay, this isn't happening for me. Is there something wrong? Because I was watching all of my friends getting married and I was in so many weddings, attended so many weddings, and it's like, well, when is this going to happen for me? So that might have been the only time that I kind of thought or questioned the path that, and I don't think it's the path that I chose. I think it was the path that I was supposed to follow. Because obviously it did eventually happen for me. My life took the career path. And so I found myself in a job that I loved, started out in leasing and, kind of grew from there. And the family, which is my husband, that just happened for me, later in life. But I also got to build a great career for myself. So that's nice.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is I don't know what period of time this was when you were going to all these weddings, but I'm kind of in that phase where I'm saying I'm not in a relationship, and many of my friends are getting engaged or married, and you open up Instagram and that's basically all you see every week is like some engagement announcement or something like that. And I find myself kind of looking at this in two ways. One is I feel exactly what you said, which is like freedom. The biggest responsibility I have is the plants in my house that I'm worried about when on this RV trip. I'm like, how do I get these plants watered? And of course I have my company and all that stuff. But in some ways I really enjoy the freedom. But in other ways, I think a relationship and committing yourself to somebody, having responsibility outside of yourself, outside of my company, is an important thing. And I'm kind of in this phase in my life where I'm like, maybe I should try to prioritize that more. But what was going through your head when you were going through all these weddings and you felt like, oh, maybe I should be in a relationship? What was going through your head?
I think for me, and I'm a girl, So there's always that kind of, why doesn't anybody?
more pressure.
Yeah. Why
Yeah.
doesn't anybody want me? What's wrong with me? That goes through your mind. But I mean, I just found myself taking advantage of other opportunities that were opening up to me, and trying to find my place, in other areas, found other friends that were single. And it really just kind of opened up part of another world for me, so to speak. And that's because I said, I was raised in the church, and that was great, and that is wonderful. And faith is still very, very important to me. But there were fences, I guess you could say, a safe zone. And so I was very unfamiliar with what you might call the secular world. And so I started making friends that maybe, were also raised a different religion, different form of faith, maybe had no faith whatsoever. They were just raised differently. And so I learned to relate to other people that didn't necessarily think the same way that I thought, believed the same way that I believed. And that was a great way to really kind of broaden my ability to form relationships with other people and see the lens of the world through different eyes, so to speak. Whether I agree with it or not, even still to this day, I have really good friends that have beliefs and do things that I don't agree with or I don't understand, but that doesn't mean that I don't care about them as people. So,
Yeah. This is a big thing that I struggle with. Is I'm somebody of very similar belief. Like, I will have friends that have completely different views than me, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's okay, and I think that's good. And I enjoy conversations where somebody might have completely opposing views of me, because it's just interesting. And then I reflect on, like, okay, well, why, what is more interesting to me is not what beliefs they have, but why
yes.
they have those beliefs and how did they arrive at those beliefs. Because you really can't look at somebody on the surface and then make a judgment without understanding the trail of their life.
Yes, exactly.
There's so much that happens in people's life that create their belief systems. For me, I'm kind of a workaholic, right? I work a lot, and I've committed a lot of my life, barring pretty much everything, in the pursuit of building this company. And somebody else may look at that and be like, damn, like, why is he doing that? But there's certain things that happen in your life that, like, make you want to do that, right? And I think it's really important to, like, understand the trail of somebody's life and connect the dots looking backwards, as Steve Jobs said in that famous Stanford speech, to really understand the person.
Well, and the person may not ever know, how did I get here? Why, you maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know. But you may never realize, oh, these are the pinpoints within my life that led me to be passionate to what I'm doing today. Sometimes, I don't feel that there were specific pinpoints that got me into the multifamily industry. I think I just happened to, I felt like it was meant to be at the right time, at the right place. But this is fun. This is something I can do. This is something that I'm really enjoying it. And at the time, it was just a job. And then it became what it is today, which has been 30 years of my life and a career. So, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. How do you feel like your priorities have changed over the last 30 years?
I think they just kind of happen organically, just because of life and age. When you're in high school, it's about, you've got to, and I think even more so now, how am I going to get into college? How am I going to, get into a good college and maybe get a scholarship or whatever. And then it might be to somebody else, how am I going to get into the sorority or the fraternity? And after that, it's how am I going to get a job? How am I going to support my kids, or how am I going to get into a house? So I think just life makes you change your priorities. And what's interesting is that I have a friend / coworker. I don't work with her anymore, but she told me, she said, something's going to happen to you when you turn 50. And she said, something's going to happen, and you're just going to be like, yeah, I don't give a shit about any of these things anymore. And she was right. I don't know what happens, but something at 50 just kind of switches, and you're just like, anything that causes drama or just, I don't want to say a challenge, but it's more like, I would say drama is probably the correct word. If there are things in my life that cause drama or individuals, I'm just like, I don't have time or energy or space. I want to spend time with people that I know have my back, that I just enjoy spending time with. Again, we may not agree. We may not see things eye to eye. But, I know they're good people. With my husband, right now my priority is focused on how am I going to support myself financially through the rest of my life. That's something, at 50, you're like, okay, wow, there's less time in the front of the car window than there is in the back of the car window. So what am I going to do differently to make sure I can enjoy those years?
Does death or the idea of death
Holy
worry
cow.
you?
Wow. No,
No.
it doesn't. And that probably, is attributed to the faith factor.
And your faith, so a little bit of context on my background. I grew up, I didn't grow up religious necessarily. My parents were somewhat religious, but not extremely. And I grew up more with this idea of there is something higher than ourselves that I believe in, and I don't know what that is. And over the last few years, I have friends from all over, from all different religions. And over the last few years, I've spent time not studying, but immersing myself into those religions to really understand.
Okay.
So I have a friend who's Muslim, so I went to the mosque with him. I have friends who are Christian, so I went to the church many times. And my conclusion here is that most religions, or every religion, almost says the same thing. But there's communities that I found in church when I went to church, and they were playing music, and I was with my friends. I was like, wow, this is a very strong community, And it was a pretty special experience that I found. I'm curious, when you look at, it sounds like you still are invested in faith, and it's a big part of your life.
It is, yes. Faith in and of itself.
But not a religion specifically.
No, not a religion specifically.
And why did that change?
I think just meeting, to your point, other people that maybe didn't have, I told you, there were fences. It was the safe space, and everybody believed the same thing. It was very, very regimented in. It was Baptist, just to clarify. So it was a lot like Catholicism, where it's just, it's a very structured environment. Even the services follow the same cadence each week, over and over and over again. And so when you're introduced to people who believe essentially the same thing that you do, but practice it or do things differently, then to your point, it's like, well, do I need to be within this building or within these fences to continue to believe and hold true, to the concrete of how I was raised, to say that I am this religion or whatnot? And to me, that's no. It's just, this is who I am. This is what I believe. That everything does happen for a reason. There is a plan for your life. Things unfold when they unfold. Bad things happen. I don't know why. That's one of the first questions I'm going to have when I get to heaven is why, why, why do you allow this to happen? Why did this happen to this person? Why do kids get cancer? I don't know. But that's just something that I've carried with me through my whole life.
You mentioned that when you turn 50, you just feel like this weight lifted off your
When I say weight,
shoulder.
it's a shift. It's a different weight.
It's a shift.
A different weight.
What is the new weight?
The new weight is like I said, how am I going to support myself when I don't want to work anymore? And it's the same weight that many of my friends have. It's funny. My best girlfriend in life. We've known each other since our 20s. I can remember going out and Friday night.
How did you meet her?
Through property management. But when we met, neither one of us owned homes. Neither one of us were married. And now, I talked to her the other day and she's like, I'm, looking for, my husband and I are deciding when he should start taking Social Security. And I'm like, when the hell did we get here? What has happened?
Yeah, my dad just started taking Social Security.
So it's just, it's a shift. You just kind of focus on, this is what's important to me. This is how I want to spend my time. These are the people that I want to be with. And if you are messing that up, then just, go away. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. I'm just thinking about. It sounds like your friend told you when you turned 50, you would feel this change. Did you feel that at any other decade of your life? Like in your 40s, was there any major change? In your 30s, was there any major change?
Other than physically, no.
No.
Yeah, you're just, in your 20s, you can fall down and it doesn't hurt, and you can eat an entire pizza and you don't gain weight, and then that just begins to gradually shift over time to where, when you get to your 50s, it's like your body's like, yeah, I don't care what you're going to do. You're not going to lose weight. You're just starve yourself. I don't care.
How did you meet your husband finally?
Oh, I met him, ironically, at a bar. So I was living in Florida, and
what? How old were you?
29 or 30. I can't remember.
Oh, so you weren't. Okay, so you still met him earlier, not super late.
Yeah. I got married when I was 31 or 32.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't insanely,
You
but I
weren't,
mean
like,
at that
late
time, people
30s.
people were getting married in their 20s, like 22, 23.
Because I'm 29, so I was like trying to.
So
check
yeah,
you.
people
Yeah.
now are getting married much later
Much
in
later.
life.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But no, we went to a friend of mine, my best girlfriend that I was telling you about. She was meeting some people. I just moved to Orlando, and she was meeting some people to go watch Florida State game. And so, knowing that I'm a huge Florida fan, she said, "Why don't you come?" And he was there to meet who actually was my boss at the time, and so he knew somebody that wanted to introduce him to my boss, and hoped there was a connection there. And I was there with her to just kind of hang out. And my boss and him, I don't understand what he was thinking. The guy that introduced them, because, no. But anyways, she bit him. It's a true story. She bit him.
Bit him?
Yeah, bit him. She's a Yes, she had a few.
Okay.
Got excited, bit him, and so that was done right then and there. And he said, "Who's the redhead?" Introduced me, and they did, and there you go.
That's awesome.
So
And when you met him, was he what you what you were looking for, or
no,
no? It's funny how that works.
No,
People
not
have
at
this
all.
like idea and expectation of what your partner, perfect partner, quote unquote,
Yeah.
should be like. But the reality is, it's often different. What was that like?
it's funny, and I still tell him this. I'm like, he had on the ugliest shirt I've ever seen in my life, and that's what resonates with me. Other than that, and he was very into fitness, so he looked amazing, and then he was wearing this awful shirt, and I mean, he was very nice looking guy, but I was not necessarily looking for anything. I just wanted to have some fun, and we talked, hit it off. He asked me out, and he said, I remember on our first date, because we met like the Friday before, Thanksgiving was the next week. And so I left Thanksgiving to go meet him, to go to a movie and have a drink. And we were talking after the movie, and he said, "I just want you to know that I've been married before, and I never have any intention of getting married again." And I said, "Okay." Said, "Because I'm currently seeing 2 other people, and I don't have any intention of not seeing them just because you and I are going out. So I'm really glad that we cleared the air on that."
Oh, wow.
And so, I guess he wasn't used to being talked to that way. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I guess he found me a challenge, and so
Yeah.
we started dating.
And how long, since you started dating, did you guys get married?
Probably so our first date was I think it was Thanksgiving, 1998, and we got married on July 4th, 2000.
So under 2 years, yeah.
A little under 2 years.
Under 2
so
years.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it happened quicker than I had anticipated, but
What have you learned about yourself in the last 2 decades of being married?
compromise and patience. So you meet, I mean, when you marry somebody, you think it's going to be Care Bears and rainbows and just honeymoon and happiness. And, life happens, and you see that person in their true skin. I think even when people get married, unless they've been together and lived together for a long time, don't really have a true glimpse of who that person is when things get tough. And it's during the hard times that you see, okay, this is the person that I married. And how am I going to stick with this? And again, I was brought up in a home where divorce was not something that I ever saw happen. I rarely even saw my parents fight. So
They were very much in love and
very much in love. They got married after they met on New Year's Eve and got married Easter Sunday the same year, and they were married for over 50 years. So yeah, cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So for me, backing out of a marriage just isn't something that that I would even consider unless circumstances were horrible, like probably physically abusive. Then that would probably say, yeah, no, I'm not doing this.
Why do you feel so? I understand you saw, which I feel like is becoming increasingly rare. I was listening to a podcast yesterday that talked about the divorce rates, right? And if you look at the divorce rate for a first-time marriage, it's roughly 43%. You would think that the second marriage would be lower, but it's actually higher. It's
Really?
like 50-something%. And a third-time marriage is like in its 60s. So if you average out the divorce rates, it's roughly 50%. But out of everybody that is married, 8% of people that are married are chronically unhappy. So if you take the 50% divorce rate, add 8 or 9% on that, that's nearly 60% of people that get married are either divorced or unhappy. And it's incredibly rare to be witness to a truly happy marriage. And do you feel like just because of that, you have such strong views on divorce? Because in some ways, it's actually kind of surprising to me that you feel so strongly about divorce.
It's not that I feel strongly about divorce. It's just I saw people make it work. So
you're like, I can make it work too.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, would I rather be without him than with him? No. No marriage is easy all the time, every day. That's just not realistic. But when you think about, he and I are he and I. Just we're individuals, but we are very much us. And so, us is something worth, fighting for. And I mean, I don't have to fight for it, but it is definitely something that, I want to keep because I like us. I like us. Even when I don't like him, I like us.
That's an interesting perspective. So even when you don't like him,
And I'm sure there's times he doesn't like me.
you like us.
I like us.
What does that mean actually?
I mean, there's, you almost become part of that other person in some ways.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, that's a really powerful framing actually, now that I'm just thinking about it, because basically what you're saying is there's three entities. There's you,
Yeah.
there's him, and there's us.
there's us.
And if you use that when you're fighting or when you're arguing about something, it almost depersonalizes it, right? Like, hey, it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us.
Yes.
And like, what's best for us?
Exactly.
And it sounds to me like that is probably a really helpful tool, even getting through arguments or getting through, because, I'm just, what is my closest, my work is like where I'm comparing
Yes.
this to, which is like when I'm having a debate with my co-founder or with somebody on the team, I think it's really important to abstract away me and him or her,
Absolutely.
and like say, what is the best thing for the business? What is the best thing for us? What is the best thing for the relationship? In some ways, do you feel like getting married and meeting your husband has made you less selfish or more selfless?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Without question.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you have somebody else that you have to think about, and back to there's us, how are my decisions and my actions going to impact him? And so you definitely have that aspect of marriage, but it's also a good thing, especially if you have a partner that reciprocates. Then you get to feel that part of us from the other person.
Why was career so important for you? Why did it matter? Why invest so much
I
time?
don't think it was my intention for career to be so important to me. It's like, I spent a lot of time in my 20s just kind of floundering. And when I say floundering, it's like, I really don't know what I want to do. I don't, I loved music. I grew up actually, I was, there's band geeks. I was the chorus geek and playing the piano. And so I really thought I wanted to do something in music. And then I started logically thinking about, can you really pay your bills unless, you're really good and somebody wants to pay a lot of money to come listen to you or whatever. And so that just it just felt very risky. So then it was like, okay, if I'm not going to do what I love doing, then how am I gonna pay rent? How am I, how am I gonna buy a designer pair of jeans or whatever that I wanted at the time, and so I just happened to fall into property management, and again, it's like, you know what, this is actually kind of fun, kind of like this.
Was money like a concern growing up? Like, how was your like economic situation?
I did probably, but I didn't know it.
So your parents kept distance of where?
I never went without, but now understanding how things work financially, as an adult, I can look back and see where my parents probably sacrificed so that we, I could have a pair of designer jeans. I was raised very blue collar, and had quite, a lot of friends whose, parents were doctors and lawyers and CEOs, and they drove nice sports cars, and, my first car was my mother's hand-me-down Zephyr. So, again, we always had food on the table. We always had clothes on our backs, electricity running. We go out to dinner probably once a week. Nothing fancy, Golden Corral, but I wasn't the kid that got a trip to Europe for my graduation present.
And there were kids in your high school, and you said there was these wealthier kids.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I remember my one friend. He drove a Firebird, a red Firebird,
Pontiac
brand new.
Firebird.
Yeah, back then
That used to be one of the cars that I was obsessed with. As a kid.
Really?
I was like, yeah, I want a Pontiac Firebird. I remember that. Yeah.
So yeah, he drove one. Very insanely jealous of him.
So so I was asking. I'm curious about. So you mentioned you grew up seeing wealthy kids or growing up with wealthy kids. One of the things I feel like about money is like when I talk to a lot of people about their upbringing and whether they grew up wealthy or grew up not wealthy, the more important thing that's actually a determinant of whether they were upset or not or unhappy or not is do the people they know around them, were they wealthy or not, right? Because if you grow up in a lower socioeconomic class, but everybody around you is like that, and that's all you know, you're not comparing yourself, right?
Right.
So a lot of the times, if you're comparing yourself to somebody, that's what leads to unhappiness. Whether you're super wealthy, you can still be super wealthy. Compare yourself to somebody who's more wealthy and then be unhappy. Or you can be super poor and then compare yourself to somebody who's a little bit more wealthy and then be unhappy.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Okay, what I want to understand is we've talked a lot about your background. You said you didn't choose multifamily; you fell into it. Everybody has their own origin.
Into it.
Everybody falls into it and has their own origin story. What is your origin story?
So I was looking for apartments with a friend of mine. At the time, I was working at Busch Gardens, Tampa, Florida. So probably the best job I've ever had, by the way. So much fun. College kids in a theme park. But
Really?
what can go wrong there? So my friend Tim and I were looking for apartments, and we went to this brand new community, and we're touring around. There's no way we could afford it, but we're like, yeah, can you please show us? We want to see what we can afford. I was working in retail at the time, and I was kind of complaining about, I met Tim working at Busch Gardens, let me rephrase. At the time, I was working in retail. And so I was complaining about my job in retail. And she said, well, I used to work in retail. You should apply. We have a position open. And I thought, yeah, why not? All right. So I submitted my application and got one interview, and they said, we'll call you back for a second one. Well, they never called, and thanks to my mother's like, well, you need to call them. You need to call. She said, you keep calling them until they tell you to go away.
I like that.
So I was like, oh, okay, okay, I will. And I guess finally they got tired of hearing from me. But somebody said, you know, my boss is going to be at the property doing a tour for a grand opening. Can you meet her? And so I said, yeah, absolutely. Went and met her. They offered me the job on the spot. When the manager called me back to tell me I'd gotten the job, she says, oh, and by the way, tomorrow's my last day. So you'll be starting with a new manager. So anyways, I started, loved it. You know, it was definitely different, but really kind of just loved the business, the people, and there you go. 30 years later, here I am.
And through your 3 decades of being in the industry, tell me about like the roles you've played, because it sounds like you've done training and you've done marketing. What else have you done?
I took a very non-traditional path. So I started in leasing and was leasing at this brand new lease-up property. It was beautiful. We had Amazon parrots that sat in, 2 of them that sat in a cage in the entryway, like literally.
Wow.
Kiwi and Bandit were their names. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It
I've
was
never
really
heard
cool.
that.
It was
Yeah.
really cool. It was a brand new property. It's called the Arbors at Fletcher Island, and you know, had a pool with this cascading waterfall and this state-of-the-art gym that I've never rivaled a Bally's gym, you know, and it was just amazing. But anyways, there was somebody from the corporate office that came to help kind of train, and her name was Jenny, and this is the girlfriend that I was telling you about, and this is how I was first introduced to her. And so, on a whim, I don't know why, but I thought, you know what, I want to move to Atlanta and do this. And so I started looking through. I'm really dating myself in age, though. I was looking through. I went and got an Atlanta Journal-Constitution from a local store that carried it. It's like a convenience store, and was looking through the want ads and found a couple of places in Atlanta that were looking for leasing consultants. And so I reached out and got a job, or got an interview with a placement agency that gave me the name of a company called Focus Management. And so I interviewed with them, and the girl I interviewed with said, you know, I'd really love for you to come back and meet my boss. I think you'd be great. So I went back to Tampa, I'm sorry, and went and got a plane ticket to come back to Atlanta the next week. And I called her. I said, I'm coming back to Atlanta. Set up the interview for me. And she's like, wait. I don't know if I don't know if she's available. I said, well, ask them, because I bought a plane ticket. So find out, please. I want this job. Long story short, got the job, moved to Atlanta. I was at a dinner meeting. And I got up from the dinner meeting, which at that time was huge. It felt like 2,000 people. It probably wasn't that many, but you know, it was a lot of people. It was at the Cobb Gallery, and it took up a bunch of ballrooms. And I had got up to go to the restroom, and kind of in the foyer area, I ran into my friend. And so she was there on an assignment with another company doing troubleshooting in a property. And so we started hanging out, because she was there for 6 weeks. It was a 6-week assignment. And so we started hanging out. We went to dinner, and we started talking. And she said, you know what? We're looking to add to the team. You should really do this thing. And you literally went to a property and worked for 6 weeks straight. So they'd send you to a troubled property. It was a team. They were called the START team. And it mirrored a company here out of Atlanta called Class back in the 80s. And so we would go to this property. The company was Aimco. We'd go to this property, and it was intervention. So it was regular management, hands off, the START team, you're coming in. And all we did was lease and market for 6 weeks. And we had to raise occupancy and and net occupancy.
Aimco is one of our customers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is years ago, and this was the gentleman that I ultimately worked for. He's since passed away. His name was Steve Ira. He's one of the founders of Aimco. And so interviewed with them, and he's like, well, when can you start? You know, he said, I need somebody in Jacksonville next week. I'm like, dude, I got to give 2 weeks notice. Sorry. That's, sorry, but I give 2 weeks notice. He's like, okay, fine. And I remember him saying that to me. He goes, I guess that means you would give me 2 weeks notice if you were to leave me. I said, well, yes, I would.
Yeah.
So thank you for respecting that. But went into this troubleshooting position. And probably after a year, the team grew enough that my boss, the one that bit my husband, said, I'd like you to come, I would like for you to come join me, and we're going to team. I'm going to be the marketing director, and I want you to be the training director. So my job became overseeing the group of people that were out in the field for the 6 weeks, to train them, to support them, to help them feel like, you know, I would take calls at 2 a.m. when they've just had a horrible day and they're homesick.
And this is the on-site team that you're training.
This is it was the on-site team, but it was also the start team people, the people that were there on site. So I had to go to a property for 6 weeks.
Okay.
Work 6 weeks straight, and then 2 weeks off. And then they'd send me my next assignment.
And what would that, so in those 6 weeks, what would you be doing?
Leasing and marketing.
Leasing and marketing.
Leasing and
solely.
marketing. That's
so, and
it.
what was the training like? You would have presentations. What was it like?
At the time that I did it, we didn't have the training component. So there was a somebody that was kind of in a regional manager's capacity on this team that came in and did some training some leasing classes for the group of properties that were in that little submarket, including the distressed property that we were working on, the start team. And so I saw her do that. I'm like, that's kind of cool. And so when they formed this kind of training manager, training director's position, I can't remember what it was, within the start team, part of that was to do this kind of leasing training support of the team, as well as support those people that were working for 6 weeks in a row. So I kind of did a little bit of both. And that's where I started getting the taste for training and delivering content and doing these classes and whatnot.
And why did you like it? What did you like about it?
I think it's a number of things. I think it's, you're helping a group of people develop skills. I think that is one piece of it. And I think that's what it's really kind of developed into now. At the time, going back to when I said I was a chorus geek, I kind of liked the whole like being in front of people and presenting, and that kind of gave me a lift. You know?
Oh, so it's kind of a different manifestation of that in some way.
Yes, exactly. Kind of the performance aspect
Yeah.
of it.
Interesting.
And I think that's probably what got me into it. But then as I've been doing it for years, I'm like, this impacts people. So that's what's become really cool.
Is the feeling of the impact you're having.
Yeah, definitely. When you see somebody's eyes like go, oh, okay, now I get it. Then you're like, there you go.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That is really cool. And more recently, so now you're at RMR and you're doing training. What's your role there?
Director of Talent Development is
Okay.
what it's called. But
Okay.
yes, it's training, essentially.
And what is the difference between this job and your earlier, and like what is your role now? What is your responsibility now?
So my role now is really, it's really focused on training, developing content, delivering content, helping to develop planning and training plans, training paths to help people progress in their career. So good onboarding, making sure that people feel good within their first 90 days about being at the company, about being able to do their job, and hopefully at the end of 90 days, seeing tangible ways that they can contribute to the success of the property or the business. But then beyond that, develop ways that we can say, hey, Shiv, you're a leasing consultant, and one day you want to be a property manager. Well, here are the competencies that you need to develop. Here's what you need to be able to do. Let us help you get there. Or for a maintenance tech that wants to be a maintenance supervisor, or for an accountant that wants to manage a team. So developing those skills.
What do you feel like most people get wrong about training and onboarding?
Oh, onboarding? They don't do it. I mean, or they do it quickly. I think, especially in property management, it's such a reactive industry. It really is. And so leaders are developed in such a way that they look for the quickest way to put out a fire. Okay? And they have to, in all fairness. But what even statistics have shown is that if companies don't slow down with a new employee to speed up, you're losing so much money in turnover because people don't feel equipped to be able to do their job well. That's why you see such high turnover at the on-site levels, is because the position's been vacant and all these other things have happened, and I just need somebody to come in, fill the spot, and get up to speed quickly. People can only get up to speed so quickly. They need to feel good about where they are.
So you've worked with, obviously being in the industry for 3 decades, you've done training and onboarding on the PMC side, but I'm sure you've seen people on the technology, on the vendor side, do training and onboarding with the on-site team and onboarding into software. Do you have any thoughts there on what people do wrong, or how technology companies could improve?
I mean, I think the recipe is the same across the board, to be honest with you. It's, again, allowing time and space for the person to slow it down. Don't drop them in the weeds. Don't drop them in the deep end of the pool. Let them get there gradually. Let them feel good and confident. And you've got to give them the tools and give them the time to be able to get there. I think, some companies probably do it very well, and others don't do it at all. And I've worked for both ends of the spectrum.
Because one of the things we see is onboarding the on-site team into our product. So we sell AI software for property management companies.
Right.
We build AI leasing agents, AI rent collections agents, voice, et cetera, right? And one of the things we see is the on-site team's sentiment of the product for many companies is a massive stakeholder in the experience, because the corporate team is not they're not the end user of the product oftentimes.
Absolutely.
So how are they learning about the experience? They're learning about it from the on-site team. Hey, how do you like Kelsey? How do you like Suma? What's the experience? Oh, I don't know what it is, or I don't like it, whatever. Oftentimes what we found is that people are negative, have negative sentiment just because they don't understand it fully.
Absolutely.
Right? They don't.
Absolutely.
They're like, what is this tool? Like, I don't know what it is. And like, yeah, it's not great, whatever. But then when we go, one of the things we do, one of our company values is, it's a cheeky way of saying that we're very in person, but it's move into the customer's office. But the idea behind that is like, when we build new product, when we onboard software, when we meet customers, we're very in person, because we believe that it's really important, especially when you're onboarding, you really want the on-site team to understand it. So when we go and do these trips, when we're doing a pilot or of some sort, we'll actually go to the office, go to the on-site team, and sit with them and onboard. And it's dramatically different.
Absolutely.
In terms of their relationship with us, their experience with us, and their understanding of the product, right? Well, you don't leave a sour taste in their mouth, because I feel like on-site teams get shoved all these different products, and they just like they're just like, you use this product, use that product, and they just don't understand it, and they're overwhelmed, and there's all these dashboards and there's all these systems, and it's chaotic. So you need to, as a company, this is what I feel, you need to invest very deeply in helping the on-site team actually understand the value of the product.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so one of the things we realized is the on-site team sentiment has a massive impact on the receptivity of products. Because if you really think about it, the corporate team is going out, exploring different tooling as they should, finding out what's working, and asking the on-site team to experiment. But there's so many different tools.
I would, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I would challenge you there, because in many cases, they're not asking the on-site teams to test it. They're saying,
Do it.
this is what, for whatever reason, this is what we found. It's great. We love the demo. Now you go use it. But anyways, you said you were going to
So
the teams.
we're going to the team. So one of the things we realized was the experience of somebody using Zuma or Kelsey, whether it's on-site or corporate, because the corporate teams are not the end user of the products. Correct. Oftentimes, they're listening to the on-site teams. They're learning about what's working. They're learning about what's not working. And that's their worldview of the product. What we've realized is the experience of using Zuma or Kelsey is so dramatically different when we actually go on-site and invest in thoroughly onboarding and training the on-site team on what Zuma does and what our product does. And it's remarkable, because they go from like, oh, I don't really like this tool, or I don't know what it is, to wow, this is really changing a lot, which I just find really interesting. You being like so heavily invested in training, you must see this too.
Yeah, I mean,
even
absolutely.
Internally.
Yeah. I think the other kind of fear with AI in general is that multifamily in general has probably been hesitant to embrace it, because they see it as something that's going to replace them, when it's just something that it's going to help. And so, and there's always going to be the human element of it, even though the way a customer shops for things today, just in general, has changed drastically. It's never, everybody does research online. Technology, AI is just helping to make things easier, but when you're in fear of losing your job because you're going to be replaced by a bot, that also, makes you
not want to be.
Exactly. But the fact that you take the time to go and explain and say, hey, we still need you as a human, this is how we're helping the experience, paint that picture, absolutely. And I think that's part of the onboarding, is this is all the technology, this is all the tools, and this is how you, as the end user, you as the face of the company, need to leverage these tools to make it a great experience. Let's make sure you understand it.
Yeah, exactly. And we were talking before we started recording about how, my co-founder was a leasing agent, and what we saw firsthand, and what I've seen being a renter doing dozens and dozens of tours when I moved into my place like 9 months ago, was the experience of the tour actually influenced my emotional, because think about it like this. If I'm doing 10 tours, I'm going to remember the place, but I'm also going to remember the experience.
Yeah.
What was it like at that place? How was the leasing agent? When you think back on those 10 tours, people think they make decisions more rationally than they actually do. A lot of times it's emotional. And I think that's where, when we think about the role of on-site teams, to me, what I strongly believe in is their role should be focused on building that human connection. We're talking about retraining, right, for the new world of really investing in training on-site teams to build connections and let technology do what technology is good at. But that definitely doesn't mean that it should be fully automated where the human connection doesn't matter, right? And I think you've been in this industry long enough, you know that. I know that now too. So that's really where we see it. When you think about AI, we talked a little bit about AI and how you feel like the industry is receptive to it. Where do you feel like things are going? Where do you feel like the future of the industry is going with AI? Like, what do you think in training or onboarding? Where do you think companies are underinvesting in? Where do you think AI can be beneficial?
I mean, I remember interviewing with a company, I don't remember, 15, 20 years ago. I can't remember. And they asked me, how do you create content? What do you do? And maybe 15, 20 years ago is too far back, but I remember saying, I go to my archives, I see what I have. I might ask other people, do you have any input? Do you have any thoughts? But at the end of the day, I Google, I Google it. And now, what do? Well, you can just use Chat GPT or, all of these other tools. And even with, we're currently looking for a new learning management system. And even within our search and interviewing and demos with different companies, they all have an AI tool with it to help create content, to help you do this, to help you extract and understand data. So, I, at a minimum, I think AI might be something to leverage to help us get even better insight into buying trends, things that people are looking for. I mean, it's unlimited. But at the end of the day, the reason we're sitting here is because the multifamily industry is about the relationships and the connections. So do I think it's going to be something that completely eliminates human interaction? No, absolutely not. Right after COVID, this is a good example. During COVID, we had to go to 100% digital learning, obviously, during and after. And we thought, wow, this is cost effective. And through natural attrition, I had 2 trainers working for me. We were doing a lot of in-person training. Those positions went away, and we went to 100% digital learning supplemented with webinars. And what we have found is that people hate it. They like having the quick, 2-minute videos or whatnot, the micro learning. They need that. They want that.
Not
but
the whole course.
No, I mean, how can you teach somebody to sell an apartment online? You can't.
This is really helpful, actually, for me. So if we were to think about building, because we're just starting to build our onboarding and training function of our company, right? Mm-hmm. And we're putting a lot of thought into, I like I've already told you, I really believe in person, and I feel like especially for on-site teams to give them like some 12-step course to that's 4 hours long. Like nobody's going to go and do that,
no.
Right? What do you feel like if you were stepping in to this role at the company or something on the other side, what would the dream state onboarding and training be like for a technology company? Like what would it be? All in person? How would you kind of think about it?
I mean, I think that the challenge that you're going to have with kind of the in-person part of it is, the sustainability of that.
We can't go to all properties.
No, you can't. As you grow, your overhead, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
So I think, figuring out a way to make it personal through webinars.
One of the ideas I had too was, do you think like creating social clips, like kind of like Instagram type, like easily downloadable, like to understand short form content, to explain pieces of the product or explain things, would that be well received?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just easy, because everybody's so short form oriented now,
I mean, even if there was videos that showed, examples of role playing, is something that this is how you use this product. We're going to show you. You know, a guest comes in and says, or, you know, you get a phone call and this happens. This is an example of how you can leverage this product. I don't know, just a thought. I think videos are very, very powerful.
Yeah.
When it comes to training. If you can't be there, if you can see an example of the behavior that you want to emulate, then it's much easier to try to copy.
That behavior.
Yes.
That makes sense. And so you guys do a lot of video too?
We don't do as much as I'd like, but
You're getting there.
we're trying. It's with video comes cost. So
Exactly. Yeah.
so yeah, you've got to find the balance of that.
What's next for you, you think, in your industry? And would
What's
you
next
ever-
for me?
Yeah. Would you ever leave the industry, or do you see yourself being here long term?
I mean, I would like to be here long term. I really, I like the company. We just RMR's been around for a long time. They're a really stable company with a good vertical platform. We, from the residential side, we're really working on building our Arian brand, and we just have it's a people-centric company. So that is something that I really, really like. I don't know if you know this, but I was with Carroll for 8.5 years before it was acquired by RMR. And so it's been, for me personally, a wonderful transition. Welcomed from day one. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Love the direction that the company is going, and the time and resources that they invest in the people, which I think is so important. So if I were to retire here, it wouldn't be the worst thing, but you never know.
Audrey, thank you so much for doing this with me. This has been a lot of fun.
I've had a great time.
And I hope you've had a great time too.
I
And
have.
It felt like it was super natural. We covered like so much, from your personal life to onboarding and training and things that have been actually really helpful for me as I think through my
Good.
own business. So thanks for doing
Oh,
this.
thank you, Shiv. I
Awesome.
really enjoyed it.
Appreciate it.